Yo, what's up? This is Raquel with the Reading Roller Coaster Club, and today I'm gonna go over the books that I read in January. Again, I know we're in March, but I did start this channel back in January. I just never was brave enough to post, so I'm trying to catch up so I could have the whole year on here by the time the year's over. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my January, and then I'm gonna make a February video, and then we're almost done with March, so my March video would be coming out soon. So let's get right into it. So January for me did not start off as a good reading. I had a DNF and then I had a 2-star book. So let's get into those. The book that I did not finish was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I think it just wasn't for me, personally at the time that I am in my life. So I can't say that it wasn't a good book. If you don't know, this follows a girl named Magnolia Parks and her on and off again relationship with this boy named BJ Valentine. And I mean, and it's cutesy. A lot of people describe it as being like a toxic relationship and stuff, but I just think like they were young. You know what I mean? It was just a young relationship. They always like try to make each other jealous, but at the end of the day, they end up finding each other back, back to each other. So it just wasn't hitting with me. I couldn't care less for any of the characters and what was going on. So I think I DNF'd it like 25% the way in, or even less than that. Like, I don't know. I just didn't want to finish it. So anyways, moving on. My 2-star book, which I feel so bad. Like, I feel like I should have liked this book. And I feel like I had so much potential for me to like it. And that is The Hacienda by Isabel Canas. Now, I just feel like it got real repetitive. And one thing that was like an ick to me is she kept saying like stucco walls every time she was describing like the walls and stuff, and I just couldn't get over it because like by the end of that book I'm like, girl, that is like gonna haunt me for a couple of days, the stucco walls. So anyways, if you don't know, the Hacienda follows a woman named Beatrice who recently has gotten married to a man named Don Rodolfo. And Beatrice's background is that her father was deemed like a traitor, because this is like post Mexican Independent War in like the 19th century. And her father was deemed a traitor and was killed. So her and her mother had to go live with like an uncle and an aunt. And they were trash. They treated them like shit, like the servants. So she had to come up with a plan ASAP and was like, I'm going to try to marry this guy and I'm going to get me and my mother out of my uncle's house and into our own shit. So that's what she does. And Rodolfo is a widower. So his first wife has recently passed away. And that's one thing that kind of hangs over Beatrice's head because, in the book it describes how Rodolfo's first wife was like light complected, and his friends and everybody would be looking at Beatrice like side-eyeing because she's a little darker and just like stuff like that. So she already was like had a challenge. It wasn't an easy ride for her because when she got brought back to the hacienda, Rodolfo's sister Juana, I could not stand Juana. Like, she was giving off like such masculine energy in all the wrong ways, like trying to be like domineering and just like, I don't know, I just didn't like Juana. But anyways, so he brought her back to the hacienda, right, to meet his sister, meet his servants, who are Ana Luisa and Paloma, and these are a mother-daughter duo. So, besides Juana, everything was cool. And then Rodolfo has to leave like fast because he is part of like the government or something there. So he doesn't have time to like play house with Beatrice. So he's like, hey girl, we got married. I spent the night with you. This is our new house. Decorate it. Do whatever you want to do with it. I gotta go. I'll see you later. And so almost immediately, Beatrice starts feeling like something is off about the house. Like immediately it starts letting you know like something sinister is brewing up in the walls of them houses, them stucco walls. And she decides to seek out help from the church. So she calls the church and she's like, yo, there's some creepy shit going on here. Can y'all come peep game, And so they're like, yeah, we'll go over there. So they go and they're like, girl, I don't know what's going on. Like, you're good. But there's a young priest named Padre Andres. And parentheses, Padre Andres is Paloma and Ana Luisa's nephew and cousin. Okay, so he's new and his spidey senses were tingling. Because, side note, on him, he grew up with his grandmother who was into like witchcraft and stuff, and she told him he had it. He had the thing, he had the gift, he had the intuition. So he's like, on the side, I will come back and help you because there is something brewing up in these stucco walls. Okay. So she's like, cool, bet. So he comes back, and that's where the story kind of takes off. And they're just like trying to combat or figure out what's going on in that house. But on the side of this, there might be like a little bit of feelings getting caught between Beatrice and Padre Andres. So in the book, we get to follow, the journey of how they're going to solve this paranormal activity, and also them navigating feelings that they're starting to feel for each other and what they want to end up doing with that. So the book itself was good, I guess. I just feel like it was repetitive. I didn't really like the style of writing, and I just feel like it dragged like a way too long, and at the end of it, like, I just didn't care. So would I recommend it? Yes, because it has been proven to be a book that is popular amongst readers that they like. So I would recommend it. I just didn't care for it. Okay, so moving on. The next book that I picked up after that is our girl Freida Mcfadden, The Intruder, Thea Freida. I don't know, just like, okay. Yeah, Thea Freida. And I gave her 5 stars. Now, let me tell y'all one thing about Freida Mcfadden. Freida Mcfadden has pulled me out of a reading slump before, and when I just need to cleanse the palate or just need a quick read, I pick me up a Freida. And I have not ever given Freida anything lower than a 3 stars, so I don't know. I'm just putting that out there so you kind of get an idea of where my reviews, my rating for her is. But this book was pretty good. This followed a woman named Casey. Now, Casey is stuck out in the boonies. Like, she wants to get off the grid. So she's out there in the woods, and there's like a hurricane coming. There's like some kind of crazy storm coming, and homegirl decides she's going to sit it out because she's like, I'm not leaving my house. So in the midst of her, like gathering her little supplies, like her candles, her flashlights, her gun, everything, she sees, or she thinks she sees somebody in the window, and she's like, what the hell is that, but then she brushes it off and she's like, no, I'm probably just tripping, whatever, right? But then she goes out to her shed. I forget what draws her out to the shed, but she goes out to her shed, and lo and behold, there's this little girl, scared, knees to chest, wielding a knife, bloody. So Casey is like assessing the situation and is like, what is going on? And eventually she comes to the conclusion that, at least as of right now, this little girl is not a threat. She's just scared looking. Like, in cases, like, maybe she ran from something. Maybe she's a victim of something. Like, I don't know. So she coaxes the girl, I wouldn't say coax. She, like, convinces her, like, you should go inside because there's a bad storm coming. It's very dangerous to be out here. We can figure all this out and, get you some help and all that, like, once we know what's going on. So the little girl decides to go inside with her, but that is all she does. She does not want to talk to Casey. She does not want to tell her story. She just like, leave me the hell alone. Just thank you for your hospitality, but I don't have nothing else to say to you. So at this point, we start getting alternating chapters from like a before chapters and the present chapters. And in the before chapters, now these chapters are kind of the reason why I gave it a high rating too, because always check your trigger warnings. I'm not always going to mention trigger warnings just because I don't know. I don't really get triggered easily, so I really don't care personally for me to check trigger warnings. I just go into the book and just deal with whatever the book throws at me. But if you know that you're sensitive, like, check your trigger warnings. Like, you know what I mean? So, anyways, sorry I got off the rails, okay? I tend to do that. So the before chapters, they follow a little girl named Ella. And now Ella, she's growing up in a household with a hoarder. Her mother is a hoarder. And I think that Freida did a really good job on explaining the hoarding, the mother, the situation, the emotional and mental abuse that this little girl goes through living with a hoarder. My heart broke for her. I felt so bad for her. I just couldn't put it down. I was just reading this thing like quick, fast, in a hurry. So yes, The Intruder was the next book that I read. 5 stars. Would I recommend? Of course. It's Tia Frida. Yes, of course. Okay, moving on. After that, I picked up a book by Alice Feeney. Sometimes I Lie. Now, this is a thriller. I gave this 4 stars. So this book started off like really good, and then it kind of dragged, and then it hit you with that twist, and it was over. So if you don't know this book, I need to quit saying if you don't know. This book is about a girl named Amber, and she finds herself in a coma. She wakes up, she's fully alert, okay, but not able to move or speak. She can hear everything going around her. She hears her husband, her sister talking. She hears the nurses and things that they're saying and doing. But she herself is just there, like in her mind. Like, I don't even think her eyes are open. She's just stuck, right? So then we start following her thoughts and her trying to figure out how the hell she ended up in the coma. And then it also follows 2 weeks prior, what led up to the coma. And then we also get years prior of her childhood diary entries. And at some point, all these timelines are going to collide, and we're going to get hit in the face with a twist. And I'm going to be truthful. I had to Google that shit because I was like, what I think going on is that really is what's going on. Like, I don't fucking know. So I was like, Google, am I right? And I was like, okay, yeah, I understand. So yeah, you're going to be in for a wild ride with that one. I did give it 4 stars. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I would recommend it. Now, the next book I read, it was alright. It was called Big Chicas Don't Cry by Annette Chavez Macias. And that book is it's like a contemporary nonfiction, like a story. I mean, a story, just no shit. A family drama. Like, it follows these 4 cousins. Mari, who's been estranged, Selena and Gracie, and Erica. And Erica and Selena and Gracie are sisters, I believe. And at first it starts off with their childhood and, you know, creating an image about how close knit and tight they are, and like, you know, like they're inseparable, their bond and stuff. But then Mari's parents get a divorce, and so she's forced to move away. So then it goes like into the present time to where we get 4 different perspectives, 4 different chapters alternating back and forth from the girls and how they feel about everything, like the whole situation with their family and stuff. Because Mari eventually just quits coming around, and there is a matriarch in the family, their abuelita, which is their grandmother, and she's the one that like holds everything together. And Mari will just basically go visit the abuelita. Like, she won't really go to family functions or do anything like that. So it's like the chisme, the gossip of the family, you know, like, Mari thinks she's too good for everybody, you know. And it just kind of end like that's where they ended up in life. So we follow their stories. Erica, she is a journalist, and her story basically, one day she goes to a cafe and she's having like a real shitty day, and there's like one raspberry scone left, and this man tries to get in. She starts putting up a big old issue with him, and like it was a thing, right? So then she goes to work, and this man, Adrian, is her new boss. So we get to follow that. And then you have Selena, who's like this sassy, feisty Latina who works in marketing. She's Miss Independent. She doesn't have a boyfriend. She doesn't want a boyfriend. She just has a little boo thing on the side named Nathan. And they've been having a thing going on and on for years. And it's just like a known rule. Like, they're friends with benefits. When he's from New York, so, and she's in Cali. So anytime they're in each other's area or whatever, they know what's up, you know? But then Nathan drops a bomb on her and is like, I've only been doing it that way because you have wanted it that way, but like, I actually want more. So then we get to follow that, you know, that journey. And then Gracie, pobre Gracie, I'm so sorry. Like, I could have give 2 shits about Gracie's story. I literally would just skim through her stories trying to get through. Like, her shit was so boring, but basically she's depicted as like the virgin, like virtuous one, goody good tissues, and she works at a Catholic school, right? And then one day she sees a man, Tony, who she recognizes as her high school crush. And she is like, has all these memories flooding back. How, like, one day I think she was like mortified, like some kind of prank or something was happened like between them, and she's just like mortified. And so she's like, oh my god, I don't even want to like, she's like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to like run into him and blah blah blah. So then eventually, of course, they're in close vicinity, they're working together, they end up running into each other, and so they have to deal with all that. And so we get to follow their journey. I was pretty shocked about what ended up happening with them, but I couldn't care less about Gracie, sorry. And then last but not least, we had Mari. And Mari was my favorite chapters to read because it was more like realistic. Um Mari ended up marrying this like lawyer, Esteban, who is super macho, wants her in the kitchen, wants her popping out kids, wants her just being at home in a bubble while he's out there working and doing whatever, you know? But she has dreams of her own. Like, she loves to cook, she loves to bake, and she's like, I said I was going to do this for so long, but eventually we're going to start working on my dream too after you got settled. Because he was working on opening his own firm with his best friend Chris, and he got that done. So she's like, my turn. And he's like, when are we going to have kids? And she's like, that's not what I want to do right now. Like, I want to bake, I want to do a business, I want to, do a lot of things before kids come in the picture. And he's like, come on, girl, like, we've been married, whatever, right? So he doesn't really see her, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't really see who Mari is, but his best friend Chris sure does, for all the woman that she is. Not the homemaker, not the wife. He sees her for the woman that she is. And so that's kind of where her story like follows. And it was good, not great. I gave it a 3 star. I wouldn't recommend it. Um, it's just, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. Okay. Next, I read Before She Disappeared by Lisa Gardner, and I gave that one a 5 star. This was my first Lisa Gardner book that I've read, and this is apparently part of a Frankie Elkins series because if you don't know, which I didn't know, Lisa Gardner, she writes these books based on like a certain character and like their journey, like detectives, like a detective and then his cases and stuff. Well, this one is about a woman who's an ex-alcoholic. Well, she's an what right? I don't even know, how would I say that. She's an ex-addict, whatever. She's a recovering alcoholic. Okay, recovering alcoholic. Yeah, my brain went left. So, anyways, so she's like a little sleuth, right? She likes to go help find missing people. Like, she waits till the media dies down. She waits till the cops and the community move on, put it on the cold case file, and that's when she steps in. And she's found like 14 people or something like that, right? And so she'll go wherever she's needed. And this book, she finds herself in Boston because there is a little Haitian immigrant girl, like 16 years old, named Angelique Baudet, and she just didn't come home from school one day. And the cops and everybody are at a standstill because they've checked every camera, they've checked everywhere they can, and they have no leads. So Frankie makes her way down to Boston. She goes and applies at this bar, and she tells the bartender, hey, you have a room upstairs. I'll work here for free. Just let me keep my tips and let me have the room up there. Call it even. So he's like, whatever. We'll give you a try, you know. So she stays there and she starts doing her little detective work. And then the real police detective that's there, now he's getting wind that this woman's in town doing his job. So he starts keeping close with her and trying to do things together, right? Well, shit starts blowing up when Frankie finds out that there was another girl that went missing right before Angelique that nobody is talking about. Nobody is talking about. Nobody's worried about this other little girl that's the same age. And so Frankie starts like, what the hell? Who is this other girl? So she finds out some information, and eventually it all kind of webs together and it goes root deep into that little town and stuff. So it was pretty good. I gave it 5 stars. I enjoyed the read. I enjoyed like following the story, and also it was one of those books where you have like a movie in your head. You know what I mean? Like where I felt like I was listening to like well, not listening because I read it. Law and Order SVU type shit. I feel like I could picture everything that was going on, and I really enjoyed that experience. So I gave that 5 stars. Okay, the next book. I'm just gonna say it, and I can't explain it. I'm letting you know right fucking now, dude. My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. 555 thriller, psychological thriller. 5 out of freaking 5. Definitely would recommend. I can't even explain to y'all what that book was about. Just a woman goes on a run, knocks on her own house door because she forgot her keys. Another woman answers, is like, "Bitch, who are you?" And she's like, "Bitch, who is you?" And she's like, "I'm so and so." And she's like, "No, I'm so and so." And then shit just takes off from there. So, yes, I would recommend it 100 times over. That book had my head spinning. At the end of it, I was like, how can I tell people how good this book is? Because I can't even explain it. So yeah, go read it. Alice Feeney, My Husband's Wife, 5 out of 5. Moving on. The next book I read was The Baby Swap by Daniel Hurst. That is also a thriller. I gave that 3 stars. That followed 2 women, Avril and Jade, who both end up having babies on the same day in the same hospital room. They're only divided by a curtain. Well, one of these women decides to tiptoe in the night with her little baby and switch it with the other woman's baby because they both had little boys. And so then the book takes off from there, and we follow the both of their alternating chapters and find out what led up to that act, and if they know each other, if they don't know each other, what happened. And so it was good. It was a quick read. I don't know if I would recommend it. I guess, I mean, I wouldn't, it wouldn't be the first thing I think of to recommend to somebody, but it was all right. Then the next book I read, I gave 4 stars. It was Those Girls by Chevy Stevens, and that was a thriller. For me, it was deeper than just a thriller, though, just a story. It was more about like sisterhood and stuff, because it followed these 3 sisters who have a shitty life. Their dad is freaking abusive to them, and one night shit just hit the fan and got out of hand, and their dad ends up gone, like gone, right? So they freak out, and they take off. They find themselves in a little country, like a little country town, where they meet these brothers that are farmers who, tell them they're gonna help them, but they don't freaking help them, dude. They make things worse. So then they get away from that, and they find themselves in another little town, to where eventually they settle down in that. Okay, so then, time passes, whatever. One of them ends up having a daughter. And then once they establish that this baby is born, the chapters switch over to, I guess, what is now present time. And the little girl is a teenager. And she kind of has an idea, like her mom and her aunts had been through some shit, but she doesn't really know the full story. And so, as teenagers tend to be, she starts getting curious, and she's like, "Can y'all tell me what the hell happened back in the day? Like, who are my grandparents? Who are, like," she starts asking questions. So they have to deal with, digging up the past, and facing that. So we get to follow their journey. I would recommend this book. It was a pretty good book. All right. So my last 2 books that I read kind of go hand in hand. One of them is Verity by Colleen Hoover. And the other one is Freida Mcfadden's Thea Freida again, The Wife Upstairs. Now, Verity, I did explain this book in my very first video, so I'm not going to go over Verity again. But I read one because of the other, okay? And Freida, she be doing the most, because when I read The Housemaid, I started hearing that it was like Liv Constantine's The Last Miss Parish. I always get that mixed up. one of the parish books, right? And so I had to know. Being the nosy girl I am, I had to know. So I went and read Liv Constantine's book, and I started side-eyeing Freida like, girl. And then Verity. Otra vez. I got Verity. I read it. Go down the Goodreads tunnel, and there it was. That copied Freida's The Wife Upstairs. So me, being the little bookie sleuth I was like, wait a minute. Liv Constantine and Colleen Hoover, they both wrote their books before Freida. But I'll just say it. I don't know. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to hate on Freida. She's still my girl. So, yeah. But, anyways, I feel like they each stand on their own. The Wife Upstairs and Verity, although, yes, suspiciously similar, they each stand on their own, and I gave them both 5 stars, and I would recommend them both. So, yeah, The Wife Upstairs, it's like Verity. It deals with a wife that is, like, incapacitated, or what is that word? Like, where she's not, like, brain dead. She just is there, She's just, like, mute. She can move. She can do things. She just can't walk, and she doesn't eat on her own. Stuff like that. But she's not, like, not there. And the same here. And so here comes, like, a caretaker to come take care of her, and things just start going little, like, crazy. So, yeah, I would recommend both. And that is my January wrap-up. Yay! 10 books I read in January. So far, that is the most books I've read this year in a single month. So if you stuck around, thank you. I'm working on trying to get better on explaining things, because my brain be working faster, and sometimes I find myself off the rails and all over the place. So before I get on a rant, I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all go. If you stuck around, thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you have a good day. Do a good deed. And I will see you in the next one.